And I was like, absolutely not. I prefer to just take up a different hobby than go into the front row.
Katie, you're very welcome to Throwing Stones podcast. How are you?
Good, Jeremy. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely delighted to have you on. When I started out the podcast, I had kind of a vision in my mind of trying to capture like a broad range of players that have played at the club. So we've got senior men's team, senior ladies team. We've got head coaches coming onto the show. We've got junior players coming onto the show, ex-professionals. But what I really wanted was a legend, someone that had done it all for the club, and was one of the most well-recognised faces down there. So when I rang John O'Byrne, he he couldn't make it. So look, thanks for standing in.
I'm well used to cleaning O'Byrne's messes.
But no, absolutely pumped to have you on the show. When I was a kid doing ball boy or scoreboard, you were one of the players that I had been watching. So I saw firsthand just how good you were. But what was special for me was when, at the back end of your own career, I got to play with you. So that was great, and this interview is definitely a fanboy moment for me. And when I read your list of accolades, KV, it's easy to see why. 3 J5 medals, 1 J4, 2 J2, 2 J1, AIL winner, and club captain in 2003, 2004. We're going to discuss all that and a whole lot more over the course of the show. But why don't we just start off at the beginning? What are your kind of earliest memories of Greystones Rugby Club?
It's funny, and I apologise straight away. Like, my memory is useless, and I don't know if that's always been the case or it's too many knocks in the head. But like, memory of specific matches and stuff, I'm useless on. But the club has always been there. Like, obviously, Dad was heavily involved. My granddad was hanging around with Donald O'Sullivan and stuff when they founded the club. So I think my earliest memories are going down at a young age, being brought down with mum and dad. It used to be the senior team would play friendlies all year, and then the Leinster Senior Cup was the big event. And
it's pre-AIL.
Oh, pre-AIL, yeah. And Mick Costello's dad, Colin Costello, used to run. He owned Loch Agish, which was a dairy producer. It was like, but for the cup matches, they used to bring a trailer down and put it where the terrace is now, to accommodate the capacity, and they'd put seats in, so it was like a portable terrace behind the terrace. And I remember we draw lands down in the cup, and like, it was amazing. You'd play a whole or the guys would play the whole season. This is when like Tony Ward and Tony Doyle and stuff were playing of friendlies with the other Leinster clubs, and then your season is like, you draw lands down in the cup. It's like, well, if you lose, that's your season done. But they were huge events, and I remember going down, and I remember being involved, and like mum and dad would be there. Like, there'd be marquee up where the side car park is now, and there'd be sing songs all night, and like all the kids would be let out on the front pitch, and I remember like myself and Dunzer and like Ross and Craig Doyle and like Gareth Guilfoyle and like McGettigan and lots of others, outplaying Tip, the O'Byrnes, outplaying Tip on the front pitch or gaining ground or just running away from John O'Byrne. And you do it for hours, and it was it. And I never had, because funny, like, Dad sent me down for under, I don't know, whatever minis was. And so my cousin, like, Shane Power, who from Dot, I was thick as thieves with. So Shane was huge into the rugby, like literally as soon as he could pick up a ball, and Pierce was throwing the ball to him and stuff like that. And so as soon as he was able, he went down to play rugby, and he dragged me along with him. Eventually, he dragged me along. And I remember myself and a guy, a pal of mine at the time, Andy Kelleher, standing on the side of the pitch, watching all these. Like, we must have been 7 or 8 or something. And all the lads were throwing themselves around and, you know, jumping all over each other. And, you know, the ball was almost irrelevant. And myself and Andy were like, oh, we were horrified. I had no interest in this whatsoever. It was far too physical, and I wanted to, you know, go back and play with my toys. So, no interest in rugby, but the rugby club was a second home because I was down there so much at the weekends and playing with friends down there. But it wasn't until I went to Pres that I actually started playing rugby. And as Vincent Byrne used to say, you know, because I think he did Neil's and Claire's christenings. So, you know, there was a big infiltration from the club, like from year dot, really.
Yeah, it's a big part of your family, and great to have that kind of anchor in the community. If we fast forward a few years after you left school, there's a great picture of you online. I'll see if we can get it maybe and put it up. There's a great picture of you. I think it's a J5 Cup winners. You won man of the match in this match, and it was like maybe 95 or something like that. Any memories of that? Willie Brown would have been playing.
Yes,
like 17, I think, or maybe a bit older.
That was So I played under 19s when the year after they won the Macquarie Cup. Ross Doyle was captain. We played 19s, and at the end of that year, we actually decided to stick together. We ended up winning the J5 Cup. But the following year, I was still under 19s. It was the year I was captain, actually. And the same thing, the 19 season kind of ended early, and then we all filtered into different. And Vincent Byrne, poor old Tiernan Brennan had he'd done something to himself on the J5 team. He was playing centre for I think they lost up in they won a quarter final or something up in De La Salle, and Tiernan was centre. So Vincent was straight away in my ear hole as soon as the season finished. You know, and I got to play the semi and then the final in Stradbrook. A few league matches, and I only remember the final because that Willie Byrne team won the league and the cup double that year. But that was like Ross Doyle, Barry O'Sullivan. Like, there was a few guys from the last year's 20s. It was pure Vincent alchemy. I mean, it was a great team anyway. They won the league. And then for the cup, as you know yourself, Jeremy, suddenly when the cup comes around, teams all get about 20% stronger than they have been. And Vincent was the past master of that. Now, it was like Tiernan was very gracious about it. I remember trying to give him my medal after the final, and he nearly hit me, like, don't be stupid.
Yeah, because that was the etiquette, wasn't it? If you took somebody's place for a final, you gave the guy the medal who had played all season.
Yeah.
Willie Brown was playing. What was it like playing with Willie? Like, he is like mythical. Like the stories I've heard, I've ran into people on the street that don't have anything to do with Greystones Rugby Club that have told me stories about him. Like, what was it like playing with him?
Absolutely wonderful, educational, playing with him. Like, just a natural leader of men. Absolutely. He's so inclusive. Like, as you say, I was 18, 19 at the time. Just such a brilliant person to bring a team together. Like, Willie is the person you'd want in any dressing room.
And for the trenches, yeah.
Yeah, he was just brilliant. Like, he walked the walk on the pitch, and he was a fantastic junior player. And I don't think he'd any ambitions to play senior, because he certainly. I mean, I wouldn't, despite my appearances, I wouldn't know anything about the front row. But I remember at the time people were saying, you know, Willie's certainly good enough to give it a shot at senior level. I think the fact that he Mark Field and Liam Murphy, Reggie Morgan playing for the first team probably didn't overstimulate him. But he was brilliant. But the wonderful part of that introduction into junior rugby was just the buzz around junior. Like we had a brilliant year with the 19s where we ended up winning the J5 Cup, and then the following season, the introduction into junior rugby, like junior rugby at its my experience at its pinnacle. Like, we were fielding teams at every level, we were competitive at every level. There was unbelievable crack. We were good on the pitch. We were even better off the pitch. Back to the members' bar after every game, every cup game. Certainly, because back then the cup games, like the J2s, would be on a Tuesday, the J3s would be on a Wednesday, or whatever days they were. And the sing songs, and like Willie used to do a brilliant waiting at the platform. It was just, it was, and for an 18-year-old, I just wanted more and more of this.
Yeah.
I'd ambitions to play senior rugby, but I just loved every second of the camaraderie and it wasn't just Willie, like the people, like Joe Devine was still playing back then.
Oh yeah.
Like people like Tiernan Brennan and stuff, who just wanted to take care of you and make sure you were having fun, and you'd never be stuck for a pint or a lift.
It's a lost art now, and it's so addictive being part of that. Like, I caught that the very end of that. I would have caught a little bit of it, and you spend the rest of your life chasing that buzz. Like, I've taken myself to some dark places with injuries and things just because I want to get back to be part of that. But like, when you were growing up, I mean, the stories that I've heard. Keane O'Sullivan tells me a great story. Once he was 16 and he was kicking a ball around or something on the back pitch, and Willie Brown says, "We're stuck for a player. Will you come out?" And Keane, "Oh yeah, all right." And first touch of the ball, Keane ran the pitch and he scored a try under the posts. He ran 80 meters and Willie came right up to him and said, "Don't do that again." Brilliant.
Willie was, in fairness to Willie, he was so good to me. There was one summer I'd come back from, probably around the same time. I'd gone to America for the summer and ended up coming home early because I was a disaster. But I needed a few bob, and Willie and Vin said, "Look, come down and help Willie out down the club." And in fairness to him, I am the most useless person with anything. Like, Willie eventually, there was about 10 poles that need to be creosoted, which is literally just painting it. And he left me at that because I was absolutely useless. But that was the culture.
That's the spirit. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was really good. He also introduced me to ham and cheese jambons, which I've never thanked him for.
Brilliant. Moving on, like a couple of seasons later, you broke into the senior squad. What was that process? Did you go straight from like an 18, 19-year-old into the first, or did you kind of pay your dues at junior level for a while?
No. I went straight in, but it's a funny. It's not how I expected it. Again, the end of my last year at 20s, I was straight into the senior squad. But at the time, Greg Lynch was coaching the J1s at the time, and they were beating everyone. And the senior team were kind of coasting. They were second division. But there was a real buzz with the J1 team. Like, there was there was a great group of players, and it was a great team. They were hammering everyone left, right, and centre. And they looked like they were going to be the first J1 team from Greystones to win the Met League. Like, Greystones had won it when they were a junior club, but it was the Greystones main team. This was, and they were swatting aside Mary's and Lansdowne, and it was brilliant. And in fairness to Greg, it was wonderfully organised.
Who would have been playing in this team, Katie?
Stewie Hannon, Mark Sweeney, Jamie Murphy, like a few of the 20s who were a year older than me, like Gussie. Like Gussie had this is the medal Gus has that I don't have.
Yeah.
There's Malcolm Lane. Sorry, there's Shane Pender. There was I think Liam Murphy. I can't remember. Like I know there's a big thing down the big picture down the club of the squad, but it's sorry. The reason I talk about it was it got to the stage where lads. Now I don't know if it was commonly known at the time, but Damien Dowling was in the centre for the seniors, but he was kind of flitting between the seniors and the J1s. He played a lot of J1 game. And I got my first AIL game because Damien didn't want to miss the J1 game on the Sunday.
Jesus.
So he benched for the seniors, and I played. I started, yeah, like they won. They went on to win the Met League, but I finished out played the last 7 or 8 AIL games, and for me, like at the time, I was like, no interest in. Playing J1s. I want to play seniors. So it worked. It worked out, and it was a good introduction. I think my first ever, because I played a good few friendlies for the seniors before that. Because I remember my first ever game for the seniors. It was against Mary's, and I was marking. I was marking a fella who'd just come back from the Lions tour to South Africa. Oh, what was his name? He was useless. He was one of these Irish fellas. He'll come up in a pub quiz, like the Irish Lions. No one remembers.
Oh yeah.
Probably being very unfair. But yeah. But I remember thinking my first senior game, I was playing a Lion.
So was that senior team? Were we looking at like Spud Murphy, Reggie Carrigan kind of era?
Yeah.
What was it like? What was it like playing with those guys? I mean, they're like literally international players,
Yeah. I remember talking out in the changing room with Reggie a week after, like for an AIL game, a week after he'd been playing in France, and it kind of blew my head a bit. Reggie was a little younger, so like I would have played with Reggie for a few years before he went pro, because when he went pro, he went into Lansdowne, and then so it was only kind of when he came back. But yeah, like Spud was incredible. Again, like Willie Byrne, he was just his drive was phenomenal, and like hands down, like the I think greatest player to play for Greystones. I mean, other people may have been more skillful or whatever, but he was just certainly the most impressive player I've been in a jersey with. He just and again, really inclusive. He went like straight over to take care of the new guys coming in. He commanded respect. He just was such a winner in terms of mentality. And like I stopped playing 6 years ago. I think Spud stopped playing 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, he's about 25, 30 years older than me, and yeah, I've got friends that have played against him, so that's how long he was going around for. One thing I'm kind of curious, what was AIL rugby like back then compared to today? Because like you said, Reggie played France, and then the next week he was playing, Buccaneers or something like that. Like, I mean, how that what was the standard like?
It's tough to say. It was. I mean, there was only when I started playing, there was only 2 divisions.
Yeah.
Which, to be honest with you, I think is probably the most that there should be. I think AIL should probably go back to 1 division, and everyone else go back to Interpros, because all the travel and stuff kills clubs, and no one really has any interest in playing. From Greystones playing Kanturk or Ballyhinch, whereas you'd get more numbers down for Bective and Blackrock and stuff. But it was it was very serious. Like, it was very serious. We weren't far away from, in the golden age of Spud and Poppy and Morley and all of those guys, when they were leading Division 1 for a while, beating Shannon, huge crowds down at the game. Like, I remember when I was in school, I used to come back. When I was in 6th year, was the year Wasp signed Poppy from Greystones. And you know, it was hugely traumatic. But it was, you see, the Interpros, the Leinster, Munster, the Interprovincials were just kind of end of season things.
Yeah.
So club rugby was huge. AIL was huge. Like I used to get.
What kind of crowds were you getting for a match that you'd have been playing in, say?
By the time I started playing seniors, the Leinster had kicked into gear.
Okay.
So, but when I was in school, and I remember coming home because I was in boarding school for 4th, 5th, and 6th, and I used to get the train home, and I remember I used to get off the train on the main street in Greystones, and I could hear the crowd. Or if I was in, if I didn't go to the game and I was in my folks' back garden in the Burnaby, you'd hear the crowd. Like you'd get 2,000 or 3,000 down at all the home AIL games.
I remember I lived in Burnaby Heights, so I mean that was, and I could hear the crowd perfectly from there. Like, I mean, it really was. You could literally the whole all the way in the back of the advertised horde, it'd be like 5 or 6 people deep. It was just huge numbers down. But another thing I wanted to touch on is, like you just said there, like you are local, and you're part of a clan, the O'Brien clan. I'm just going to read here your extended family. So maybe not immediate family, but some of these have married into the family. But we have so your dad Paul played, captained the club, and he was he president as well? Isn't that right?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
Your grandfather played. Your great uncles played. Your brother Nobby played. Your sister Claire does the catering for the firsts.
Yeah.
You've then got Collie Dunn, Dave Dunn, Sean Carlos, Pierce Power, Shane Power, James Power, and then Killian Marmion, Owen Marmion, Shane Marmion. It's a dynasty. You're part of rugby nobility. Like, is that something you said at the start? Like, you played rugby with your cousins and stuff, and you'd enough of them to probably make a 30-a-side, 15-a-side game. Were you aware that you were kind of representing your family in that respect, or am I just imagining it because I come from a small?
Yeah, I was, but never in a kind of a vainglorious way. I mean, you never felt. You were always made aware of it because of people like Vincent Byrne or friends of the family who would just let you know that your dad and your uncle, David and played, and just in a very a very kind of ground level way.
There's a lovely picture of you and your dad the year you captained. I think you're still the only father and son that have both captained the seniors. Isn't that right?
Yes, I don't know. I think so. Yeah, I think so. I tell you, we won't. Yeah, I think so.
We try and find that picture and put it up because it's it's nice. I mean, that's what the club's all about. A community club like that has these stories, whereas maybe some of the elite level AIL 1 clubs now don't really have access to that depth or that history in the same way. And something we'll get into that a little bit later. You eventually became club captain. How did that come about? Like, you're quite modest when I was asking you about this off air, just kind of doing our research. But from my perspective, you revere Willie Brown. I would have revered you as the ultimate leader. So, I mean, how did being captain come about? And tell me a bit about that.
Well, I'd always been captains. I'd always been captain at certain stages, kind of in my age group. I'd been captain, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the responsibility of it. And I played with some really, really good captains. Spud Murphy, Ross Doyle was our 19s captain. He was a wonderful captain. And then we'd had good captains then when I was kind of learning my trade at senior level, or even good leaders. Like I started playing centre with Mick Carney, who was and continues to be narky so-and-so, but was a wonderful, he was a great influence and demanded respect. But I was captain, and I know it was kind of my turn.
You used to do that back then. You've seen guys just doing one season at a time.
Yeah, which I think is a flawed. I mean, I think the year I was captain, we had I would have considered myself in the leadership group of the team. And I think in every team there's a leadership group. It's something that I don't know if it's a hangover from kind of West British kind of cricket clubs and rugby clubs and thing that it's an appointed position or it's an honorary position.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was Kieran Shepherd had been captain the year before, and it just felt. Anyway, look, no one else when I announced it, no one else went for it, because what had happened previously, the first few years that I'd been playing seniors, if a couple of people wanted to be captain, they would pitch to the playing group, and then the players would vote. But there hadn't been a vote for a couple of years. So I honestly think that it was just I was within the leadership group of the team, and when I went for it, everyone was quite happy. I don't think it's the way to do things. I think like Spud was captain 4 years. I think Tony Doyle was captain 3 years. Neil McGanity was captain 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably if somebody's a captain, if somebody is the leader of a team, they're the leader of the team. It doesn't really matter what's on the board. And people like Spud and McGanity were, undeniably the leaders of the teams that they were. It would have been ridiculous to have someone else there. So
I don't think anyone would argue that you weren't undeniably the leader of the teams that you were on.
Well, I think it's different. It's different at 19s and 20s. Yeah, I think at senior level, to be honest with you, the year I was captain was the year my ability to perform at a high enough level was on the wane.
What age were you when you were captain?
26, I'd say.
Right.
I'm guessing. I don't know. I certainly wasn't at the age it should be waning.
That season though was actually very successful for the club. You won the old AIL Division 3, but there's a funny kind of story behind.
Well, yeah,
there, bureaucracy at its finest.
Well, it's funny. We didn't win Division 3. Highfield won Division 3. They beat us by a point.
So and they came first in the table.
They came first in the table, which won them the one automatic promotion spot.
Right.
Which obviously was the only thing anyone was really interested in. But the IRFU had for a couple of years just to try and generate a bit of excitement about the end of season. Each division would have top 4 playoffs. So we won that trophy, the Division 3 trophy. Now, I think Highfield played their semi-final, probably still under the influence. I think they've been celebrating their promotion for a week, and they, the Ards who we played in the final beat them. But I don't think as far as they were concerned, their season's over. So we got to the final, and pretty much hammered Ards. I think we beat them by about 50 points.
I was at it, yeah. It was in Lansdowne Road.
Yes, yeah, which was the big. I'd gone over on my ankle in I think the second or third last game down in Corinthians. I think they'd driven a tractor over the pitch or something. I was literally just running with the ball, and my ankle went over a trench. I was that was one of. I think I played in Lansdowne Road once ever, and that would have been the second time. So it was a bitter pill.
There's a great picture of in the club of you and McGann lifting that trophy, but that photo almost wasn't taken. Yeah, explain what happened there.
When McGann was captain,
your absence.
So he finished off the season as captain and was captain of the day. When they did the prize giving, I didn't want to run to the front or anything like that, so I was happy enough to watch because I hadn't played. And McGann, the gentleman that he is, of course, wouldn't take the trophy when he got up the steps. and was like looking around, going, oh, "Where's Cavey? Where's Cavey?" So eventually, somebody pointed me out, and McGann was like, and he was arguing with the stewards up there, and then there was like I wasn't saying anything, but somebody beside me, I think my mate Donald was beside me, and he was like arguing with the stewards down there. He's the captain. He has, and anyway, the steward just like, no, you can't go up, only players, blah blah. So anyway, so McGann wouldn't lift it up until I got up there, and then we lifted it up together, and I was delighted to see then it was on the cover of some Irish rugby magazine at the time. And we're like, because I was wearing the Greystones blue shirt, the ones or whatever, and we were lifting up the thing and the big sweat patch under my arm.
Oh no!
Photos aren't my thing.
An interesting story for me. You probably don't know this. You may have never heard it before. So you wore 13. You're outside centre, and you would have worn the 13 jersey for that whole season. About 5 years ago, we were training, and Paul Lennon or Whizzer or someone came up to us and said, "Hey, we're doing a clear out of the storeroom, opposite the old dining hall. And if anyone wants to grab a jersey, go and grab one." So about 6 or 7 of us ran from the back pitch all the way in, and everybody wanted to get a jersey with the Anglo-Irish logo on it, you know, and that was like the big prize. My big prize, just because of kind of growing up watching you, and you've been one of my Greystones heroes, was I wanted the 13 jersey. I wanted Cavey's 13 jersey. And I was looking at, I found it. Brilliant. So had it then. I was absolutely delighted. It was a little bit well worn around the waistline. And the arms were a bit tight. But
I'd say.
No, I was absolutely delighted. It was my prized possession. And a couple of years later then, I went with some friends to Alaska. And our plan was we were going to drive as far north as we could until we hit the Arctic Circle. And everyone brought something with them from home. So one guy brought an Irish flag, another guy brought a bottle of his dad's poutine. I brought my KV Greystones jersey. And there's a photo of me at the Arctic Circle wearing the jersey. It's hanging up there. You can't see it across camera. But I'll try and get it for this to put it up. So that's where that jersey ended up in the Arctic Circle.
Is it still there?
No, it's back in my mum's house now in Heatherview.
Okay.
So, so there you go. I bet you never thought that.
Yeah, brilliant.
No, I mean, like I said there, like you're one of my my Greystones heroes, and like you're famed for like a physical style of play. I remember playing a match with you once, and you took a charge up and you bounced the guy. You hit him so hard. I don't know what body part, but I just heard him snapping, and he just lay there and he was just carted off the pitch, and you were absolutely fine back at the other end of the pitch. I couldn't believe the physicality that you brought to games. And I remember talking to this once with Pat Downey, and Pat tells me about a match that he was medic for, and you tackled the player so hard that Pat, he says this so seriously, he literally thought you killed him. Because he ran onto the pitch and he said his eyes were back in his skull, his tongue was hanging out, and he wasn't moving, and he thought he was dealing with a dead body. Like, do you remember that?
Yeah, I do, and I feel bad for laughing at it, because we played Bective in Donnybrook, and they had a fella, their right winger, I can't remember his name, but he was, because Pat was involved with the Irish under-21s, and like he would have known a lot of representative lads. Like Pat's another fella who I would have in any changing room I was involved in. He was just absolutely brilliant to have around. But this guy, this winger, I was playing 13 and Bective moved the ball wide, and this winger, he was one of those fellas I hated playing against, who could run like a crab, who could move quickly sideways, sidestepping as they could going forward. And whatever their move was, he came from the open wing into my channel. So I think obviously trying to beat my drift or whatever like that. So I caught him around the knees. It wasn't actually a big impact tackle. I caught him around the knees, around the upper legs or whatever. But then the way you're taught, if you get someone, try and turn them.
Mm-hmm.
So once I had him, this is still kind of mid-air, I went to reef him so that our pack would be able to get the ball. Yeah. But his right or left foot got stuck in the mud and then under my body. And I got up. I literally looked up and he had 2 knees on his right leg. His knee had completely, like the lower part had completely detached. And he literally had his knee and then he had this other protrusion about 3 inches down. And he was, and that, like, it's horrible because he was Irish 21s and that ended his, he didn't play rugby. I don't think he played rugby again.
Wow.
I was sick. I was absolutely sick. But yeah, Pat's right. He was just deathly white. Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily the impact. It was just the kind of force involved in the collision and the angles involved.
Gus used to, Gus, I used to love, like, when I started playing rugby with seniors, it felt like, I regularly put in 2 or 3 dump tackles a game. But then as the years kind of moved on, rugby kind of evolved. I know this sounds ridiculous now, but I think when I started playing rugby players just ran straight.
Yeah.
To defend. They weren't necessarily looking for the gaps in between the players. It was like, well, pick a line and go that way. And if that line was in my flight path, great. Pick them up, pick them down. Oh crap, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, sorry, Gus. Gus used to slag me that when I had the ball, and I was physical. I was a very physical player, not necessarily by choice. Like I loved playing open, expansive games. There's nothing I loved more than dropping a skip 2 into like Dave McKechnie or Maurice Logue's arms at full tilt. But just by the gifts God nature gave me, I wasn't doing much running myself. But Gus used to slag me that my most potent weapon in offence was my arse, because I used to go into tackles in a certain way, and I'd kind of turn my hips, and I knocked a couple of people out, literally just because they put their head in like up against my hip more than my arse. But Gus used to fall around the place laughing.
Well, it's funny because that kind of leads me on to my next question, and like because you were bigger than any other back then. Nowadays you can see some big backs, but you were like kind of an anomaly back then. And I'm wondering, was there any talk of you moving into the forwards? The reason I ask is because a couple of seasons ago, Greystones were playing Terranure. This was long after you'd finished. You're talking 15 years maybe after you'd finished playing for the Firsts. And Greystones were playing up in Terranure, and your younger brother Nobby was playing prop. And apparently someone from the Terranure crowd, one of the fans, said, "Oh, they finally moved that centre into the front row."
I never heard that. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Absolutely fantastic. So
he's been on his diet since.
Was there any talk of you playing in the forwards? Because you do have an incredible set of hands. Your passing is better than anybody I've seen.
No, I think there's a multitude of fullbacks and wingers that might disagree. I'm happy enough with my. I can never pass off my left. Like still to this day, I can't spin. Like it's ridiculous. I can kick off both feet. Like I have a chance of getting a ball to my winger with my foot than my left hand. No, I like the soft hand stuff, but more than kind of 10 meters, I wasn't particularly good. But no, there was never any talk when I was in Blackrock. Alan McGinty tried to get me to be a flanker, and I quickly kind of backed out of that. And Joe Mack, may rest in peace, the legendary Gerrards coach who was heavily involved in Stradbrook. I remember we played Rock 19s, and he, in fairness to him, I mean, I was Leinster 19s at centre at that time, And in fairness to him, and this is when professional rugby was kind of nascent. He came up to me after the game and said, "Look, I think you could have a serious career if you moved into the front row." And to be honest with you, when you like, if you look at it, you know, mobile, like back then, the Leinster props and the Irish props were all big, kind of not fat, but you know what I mean. They were the archetypal prop.
Yeah.
Whereas, like Joe could see, we were moving to much more mobile props, and I was like, absolutely not. I prefer to just take up a different hobby than go into the front row. But the year I was captain, and this happened a couple of times. You know the way the ref comes into the changing room before the game to do the toss or whatever, or talk to the front row, and a couple of times the referee would come in to the change room, and I'd get up because he wants to do the toss, and he'd go, and the ref would go, "Oh, that's great. Can you get the rest of the front row, please?" I know, I'm second centre, I'm first centre, whatever, and it didn't happen once. Like I think it happened twice. But my father loves telling the story about when I was only a couple of weeks old. He brought me down to mum and dad brought me down to the rugby club, and there was a famous prop at the time. I can't remember his name. But anyway, he has a look at me, he picks me up, and he goes, "Paul, that's a beautiful baby, no neck." Perfect prop.
So good. It is funny though, like that kind of, obviously, like literally since you're born, people had suggested that you should be bored. But one thing from playing with you that you needed to be in the centre was your communication skills were just out of this world. I remember playing a game. You were 12, and you were playing first centre at 12, and you were kind of keeping in check the 13, the winger, and the fullback. You were kind of letting, talking to them all game. You were also talking to me and Sean Carlos at 9 and 10, and their whole back row. So it was actually 10 players. It was 10 players that you were like, not in an overbearing sense, but controlling how we played, and it was like having a coach on the pitch. It was absolutely incredible. But is that something you were cognizant of, your communication skills? Like it's one of the most important tools to have. It's so overlooked today. I mean, some guys just play through a whole 80 minutes and they don't open their mouth. It takes no skill. You just do it. You just speak. You don't have to be fast or strong to be able to speak like that. I think I agree with you. I mean, I think communication is so important, but also I think smart communication is important. I mean, what used to wreck my head, and don't get me wrong, like I made all the mistakes that I used to try and stop other people making, stuff like here, or now, or calling someone's name. I found, and I think I probably learned this when as I said earlier, I started with when I started playing seniors. Mick Carney, who he played full back for Leinster, but by the time I was playing, he would kind of shifted into the centre, and he was brilliant. He was just constantly, and he'd annoy people by constantly back row and stuff, but it was that constant communication which I thought was brilliant. Like he just a non-stop monologue of, okay, that kick, if they're clearing the line, you're telling your flanker it's his right foot. Things like that, or they're and especially if you're playing at 12, because your 10 is focused on quality of the ball, when the ball's coming out. So if you're feeding him information, actually you may have called a move because they're open side wingers deep.
Yeah. But then when the line out turns into a maul, the wingers come up. So you need to feed that into your out half, because he may go from moving the ball out wide because you think of space out there to actually the space for a punt. It's not about making the calls. I think it's about relaying the information, but in a way that everyone can access it easily. It doesn't have to be decoded. And all you do is give options, and people, like, if people have options and they take the wrong one, that's fine, but at least they had the option. Yeah. But I think, I really agree with you. Like, even when I coach my young, I don't coach, when I go down and watch my young fella Shane play football, and then Ga, they're only under 13s, but you're kind of saying, don't run around waiting for someone to pass to you. You got to let them know, even if they don't pass to you, let them know, well, actually, I'm free on the right, or, if they know and don't pass to you, that's fine. At least they knew. But there's no point being in the space to do something and not tell anyone about it. So I agree with you. I think it's a huge skill that's easily coached. Now, like, you don't want 7 backs all shouting, but there can be a constant Twitter of, do you see the blindside wingers come in? Yeah, I'll take them, move out. It's almost military, and it can work very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is nobody better than you at it.